A lot of popular print-on-demand advice actually sucks. And over the last 5.5 years of selling print on demand, I've fallen for a lot of that bad advice and made hundreds of mistakes because of it. Mistakes that cost me time, money, and most importantly, momentum. That's why in this video, I'm breaking down the 5 worst pieces of print on demand advice I see beginners falling for all the time. And I'll share what you should focus on instead so you can skip those mistakes and grow way faster than I did. The first mistake that I see beginners make is thinking that print on demand is passive income. When I first heard about print on demand, I honestly thought that it would be easy. Just throw a design on a t-shirt, put it on a store, and boom, you make money. I thought that my day-to-day would be making a design or two and then watch the sales just come rolling in. But once I got under the hood of this business, I learned really fast that this was way more work than I ever expected. So this is what I learned. Print on demand is not passive, at least in the beginning, because we're learning how to run a store. We're learning how to design. We're learning how to actually get things set up on Shopify or Etsy. We're learning how to run traffic, and we're problem solving as issues arise. So when you go into print on demand thinking that it's going to be passive, you quit the moment it actually gets hard. When you go into print on demand knowing it's a skill building business that you can automate later, you then are going to stick with it long enough to actually see those passive results. So now I'm at a point in my career where I have a team that helps run my brand, and it's passive for me because I'm really only putting in a few hours each week, but it's still checking in with my team, making sure things are running smoothly. I'm still making the big decisions about the brand and the ultimate vision that I have for it, but it has become passive over time. But it wouldn't have been passive if I didn't learn all the skills on my own to be able to then train somebody and pass it off to them. Now, the second mistake that I see beginners make is that they think they can start with no money. Now, when I started, I was definitely frugal. I didn't want to spend a single dollar. And it wasn't until Chris, my now husband, actually sat me down and said, you need to pick an amount of money that you are completely okay with losing and cutting ties with, because you have to invest something if you want to learn. You see, all I was doing at that point was I was so focused on every single dollar that was going out the door and not seeing money coming in. So I had a little bit of a panicked moment. But honestly, that piece of advice that he gave me was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received. Because if I hadn't cut ties and said like, okay, this is pretty much a gamble. If I lose this, I lose this, and I am going to be okay with that. I'm not going to be upset. I'm definitely not going to be happy about it, but I'm not going to let this kill me. And until that point, I was just stuck because all I could think about was not spending money instead of focusing on the learning process and what could actually bring money in. Now, I ended up learning quickly that you have to spend money to make money. Now, you don't want to go and spend it recklessly, but you want to spend it intentionally. For example, the first thing that I ever invested in was working with designers because I didn't want to waste 6 months trying to learn how to use Photoshop because, there was no AI tools when I got started. And so I didn't want to learn from scratch. So that was the first investment, was working with designers and hoping that I would see a return on that. And then after that, I had to put money into ads to actually drive traffic to my site. And that was another big investment that I had to make. But if I hadn't had that traffic and I didn't have good designs, I never would have made sales. So if you're starting on a tight budget, pick a number that you are okay with losing. It could be $100, it could be $1,000, honestly, whatever your budget is. Now, you want to spend that money on tools that can help you learn and get over the learning curve and get data faster, like putting it into design softwares and maybe taking a design course that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, or learning how to drive traffic with Facebook ads. By doing this, it'll speed everything up and you are giving yourself time to actually learn the process instead of just being panicked that you're spending money and not seeing money coming back in. Because in the beginning, it can take a little while. It's hard work. You're learning something that you've never done before. So it makes sense that we need to put time, we need to put effort, we need to put a little bit of money into it to actually be able to see the results of that hard work. Now, the third piece of bad advice is if you build it, they will come. I will never forget taking the password off of my first Shopify store. I thought, this is it. People are going to be flooding in. And I refreshed the dashboard, and I think within the first 12 hours, I had like one visitor. And I'm pretty sure that one visitor was me or my parents, because I texted them the link and was like, the password's off, the site's live. And honestly, that's when it hit me, after only seeing, one person on the site after 12 hours, that people don't just stumble across your site. Until you have a brand, nobody is typing your name into Google. You have to drive the traffic. And that was something that was extremely eye-opening for me. Uploading designs is really important. It's the most important part of the process, but it maybe takes up 50% of your time. Now, another big chunk of it goes to actually figuring out how to bring people to your site, whether that's ads, making content, learning SEO, working on collaborations potentially with affiliates. If you're not thinking about traffic, then you're not thinking about building a business. You're just kind of making a project for yourself. So learn this early on, that you need to figure out a way that you are going to drive traffic, because people aren't just magically going to fall on your doorstep like I believed they would. Now, if you're somebody who's maybe a little on the fence about learning how to drive traffic, maybe you're a little nervous about it because you've never run ads before, I completely understand. And it's why I've linked in the description below a link to my free school community. There you can take our 51 hours of Shopify print on demand training, where we go through all of the ways that we drive traffic to our store, so that you can avoid the mistakes that we made early on and get people to your store that actually want to buy. Again, it's completely for free, linked in the description below. We'd absolutely love to see you there. Now, let's talk about the fourth piece of bad advice that I see, and that is picking a niche based on what is trending. Now, if I could rename my first store, I literally would have called it Designs That Meg Likes. I had absolutely no niche except for designs that I personally thought were cool. And while I wasn't necessarily chasing trends or analytics, I see so many beginners pick their niche that way. And they pick it based off of analytics of what looks good and what they think will grow over the next few years. For example, I've seen people pick the parenting niche, and I'll ask them, do you have kids? And they say no. It's really hard to be in the parenting niche if you don't have children. How are you supposed to connect with that customer on an emotional level? It's really hard to design for a niche that you don't understand. And even if you can force yourself to, you're probably going to get bored because there's little to no connection. Now, yes, we want to use data to guide ourselves, but we want to pick something that we can actually relate to. We want to pick a niche that we're a part of. When you understand the audience, your designs are going to be better. Your ideas are going to come easier, and you're actually going to enjoy building your store. Because I've built stores in niches that I wasn't interested in. And honestly, I lost interest really quickly, even when sales were coming in. You want to pick a niche where people are interested in buying what you're selling, whether that's t-shirts, mugs, whatever it may be. But you also want to be able to connect with that person yourself. You don't want to just pick it based off of what is trending right now in the world. And now the fifth piece of bad advice that I see is more channels equals more sales. For the longest time, every time I got frustrated with Facebook ads, I'd jump from one platform to another. Pinterest, TikTok, Google, you name it. I spread my budget everywhere thinking that I would grow faster. If I were on all these different traffic channels, I would be getting people from everywhere and they'd all be landing on my site. But all that really did was slow myself down and honestly waste money, because I wasn't giving myself time to fully master one channel before adding in another. Focus on one platform and one traffic source until you get good at it. And honestly, you can focus on one for a really long time. I still really only focus on Facebook and Instagram ads because I've had the most success with them. And sometimes I'll get a little bit shiny object. I'll go try something else and realize really quickly that I am just not ready to fully dive into that traffic system. And I need to go back to just my home roots and what I know best. So once you've built a system that works, then you can start to slowly branch out if you want to. You absolutely don't have to. And you can start learning those other traffic sources or start learning another platform to potentially sell on. Not multitasking is how you're actually going to scale in print on demand. So let's recap the 5 worst pieces of advice that ruin print on demand stores. 1 is that print on demand is passive income. 2 is that you can start your brand with $0. 3 is if you build it, they will come. 4, picking a niche only on trending analytics. And 5, more channels equals more sales. Ignore these myths and focus on learning, testing, driving traffic, and mastering one platform. That is how you move faster than 99% of beginners. Now, I'm really interested in learning what is the worst piece of print on demand advice that you've ever fallen for. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one of them. And if you want a clear plan of what has worked for me in my print on demand journey, then click the link in the description below to join my free school community where you'll get access to our 51 hours of print on demand training. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It would absolutely mean the world to me. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.